Right there. It's pretty, so complicated city and our people with any that means very much. Okay, so like now I ended up Michelle and like to throw it away and take it. Like get it school. I don't want that.
Anybody to say anything at the DOT.
Well, yeah, they did cool things to it. It makes sense to do it all, but it's like I don't know where it is. And then what is sent together the whole thing. With that, I will call the September 4th, 2025 Des Moines area MPO Transportation Technical Committee meeting to order. First on the agenda, I will need a motion to approve the agenda. So then, right. Moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Item number 3, approval of the August minutes. Is there a motion? Motion approved. I'll second it. Moved and seconded. Is there any discussion on that item? Okay. All right, all in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Item number 4. This is a presentation on the Northern Transportation Corridor to Interstate 35 and Addison is presenting on that.
I'll introduce Nelson here with us from the city of Metropolitan. But it's a Paris skiing here, but we're switching weeks today. So Norwalk, if you're not familiar, is working on a pretty big project that will take the city down to Interstate 35 and ask them to come here and explain a little bit. This will probably start seeing these in future funding applications and so forth. So like people time to do this.
Excellent, thank you. Yeah, you do get a loop, just not the good loop. So I did notice you have some people online. I would assume this is where I'm supposed to be so everybody can see in here. Okay, excellent. Well, I'm going to make this brief, just give you a general summary. So we've got just a few slides put together that give you a good round vision of what we are imagining for our future. The white line with the black dashes, that shows Norwalk corporate limits. For any of you that don't know, Norwalk is connected to the metro. We're connected to Des Moines, West Des Moines, and Cumming down in that southwestern area. Along our north border is Highway 5 that we're looking for that interstate designation. And our future growth is predominantly following the North River for the purposes of following a future large sanitary sewer addition to our community. So the growth area is giving a rough indication that we're heading southwest or in that western direction towards Interstate 35. And the green dotted line shows a future North River interceptor. This is a line that the WRA has discussed with us for past years, and we've just completed the first phase, which takes us from here. I shouldn't say completed. We're about halfway through it. It's about a $10 million project from here to about this location. So $10 million looking on a map like that doesn't get you real far. Part of the reason I say that is to give some indication that this is quite a ways off in the distant future. Norwalk's land use plan. This one shows where Highway 5, future I-435 along the north side of our community, and then Interstate 35 on the far west side. So for this full build out of our community for our future land use plan, this would be about doubling the size of our city. Again, reinforcing that these are long range plans. Where you first see a future interchange, which is kind of the main purpose behind the discussion, is in that southwest portion of the map. So after we looked at some of the possibilities for sanitary sewer, where we may want to put a future interchange, we solicited help from Snyder and Associates to come in and look at different transportation corridors to get from Highway 28, which is the main roadway that goes through the center of Norwalk, north to south, which is kind of hard to see, but this is Highway 28. So the bulk of Norwalk is right here. And Interstate 35 is right here. So they have about 8 different options, pluses and minuses with each route. And this is what our guide is as we move forward with future development. Likely, as development occurs, it really defines where that appropriate line is at. But we've done our homework to find out if it's possible. Yes, it is. And the best location for an interchange at Fillmore, but you might be able to see very lightly, there is one alternative that showed an interchange a little bit further north. I would imagine some folks might be asking, well, what's the distance from the nearest interchange? And I don't remember exactly what they are. It's like 1.5 miles. If you're in an urbanized area, it goes up to, 3 miles if you're outside. So part of that involves Fillmore being a little bit further south of clearly meeting those distance requirements between interchanges. So like I said, we have not decided on any of these particular transportation routes, but we know we've got several options. I believe this is the last map. The blue dash lines are City of Norwalk current corporate limits, City of Des Moines in red, West Des Moines in purple, and coming in green. The yellow line, we're currently in the process. We're dealing with a couple of appeals from one property owner. Otherwise, other than that one property owner, we've had all the rest voluntarily sign annexation papers. So it's about 3,000 acres that gets us all the way out to the interstate to really solidify those future corporate limit boundaries. So once we get through all those appeal process, that would finalize that annexation. From there, if a question comes up, such as how long are you looking into the future? I remember we sat with each property owner individually. Our mayor did a great job of talking with them. And oftentimes that question would come up, well, how long before the city actually gets out here? And there was one time, it was almost at the same time, I said 40 years and the mayor said 15 years. So we've kind of chuckled about that. So we've told people between 15 and 40 years we get out to the interstate. That's it in a nutshell. Any questions for me?
You did the study with Snyder. Have you done to do the Pell study or anything like that?
That's our next step. We actually have that identified in the budget for next fiscal year to take that next step. And likely we will continue to work with Snyder and Associates, just one step after another. And I will tell you that we go with the Greater Des Moines Partnership on the DC trips, and we have been telling our federal delegates, hey, this is coming at some point in the future. There's no request, but just like we're telling you, we're just giving everybody a heads up that in the future, this will become a request for a new interchange.
I was gonna ask, what's the tipping point for needing a new interchange in the sake of traffic volumes? Because I mean, you think about, I guess, logically, I mean, I don't know, I mean, other than maybe going to Kansas City, the bulk of Norwalk is not going to drive 3.5 miles south to get onto I-235 and then go back north. So I'm just curious on like the projections and how do we determine that actually a full interchange is needed for future development? And really that's who's going to use it, because again, they're not going to go from Mackinac Park south, right? So
yeah, great question. One of the key parts of our future land use plan is the amount of light industrial that's been identified along this entire corridor. And we have a certified site that took place right here just north of Delaware, where we have Windsor Windows and Michael Foods. Michael Foods has talked to us about expanding and creating a distribution center in that location. So those type of uses, Probably not residential, probably not people coming from the community going south and west, but more those light industrial users and the kind of truck traffic that would occur, as opposed to having them go through Norwalk, being able to go straight west out to the interstate. That doesn't add what number? I have no idea. We leave that up to the engineers to tell us when and if that's justified. It's just those type of land uses are going to generate a lot more truck traffic.
So here,
Okay. How's the local road network going from the interchange back to the, it look like you're doing new arterial? Not that now,
That's a good question. The future land use plan, it's kind of hard to see where it identifies. For example, if I put your proposed minor arterial, it's kind of hard to identify, and that's the exact color, but that would be shown up as that main route west. At what point that changes from minor arterial to a major, I don't know that I can.
it's a big roads. Developers to help putting in those roads.
It's development driven. I remember, some of you may remember Clyde Evans, Economic Development Director. He's since retired from West Des Moines. I remember talking to him one day, and he said, Luke, I never thought in my career I would see Veterans Parkway going to make that full connection. He said, I didn't even think it would happen within my lifetime, but for one project that happened. So when people ask that question, likely it's development driven, and it's incremental that takes place until we get out there. With developers taking on a bulk of those upfront costs, we usually we do tip rebates. But if we have sizable projects happen, there is the possibility the city could initiate.
And your comp plan, what's your projected?
I don't know that off the top of it. Sorry. That's where Luke Paris would be the right guy here. Great questions. Sorry, I can't answer all of them. Anything else?
any requests for the MPO? No questions on mine.
Gunnar, what was that?
I was gonna say, do you have any requests of the MPO?
Not at this point. I think purely this is informational. And I want to say this is even something that Snyder and Associates talking about what are your next steps. And Luke Paris having a lot of experience with the MPO. All of them said this is important just to get in front of you folks as soon as possible. If there's major red flags that come up, the sooner we hear those, the better. Excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I'll just, if I can real quick say, thanks Lou, for coming. If other communities want to do something similar, if you've got any project working, I know we've done this a few times over the last year or so. We want to get more than happy to get some, please let us know and jump this in.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda is item and report and vote on the public fiscal year 2027 Iowa Clean Air Attainment Program pre-application.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. Pre-applications were due on August 29th to the MPO. We have received one application for the 2027 cycle of the ICAP program for the city of Ankeny. And this application was for an adaptive traffic signal control system. This is phase one of a project they have set before us. The upgrades have been made along this corridor in preparation for this project. And the project is generally looking to install about 10 to 12 adaptive traffic signalizations along Moore Labor Road and Delaware Avenue. Total cost for the project is up there on the screen, $550,000, and their request for the ICAP program is $450,000. The project is consistent with the MPO's congestion management plan to reduce congestion at peak hours. Staff recommends approval. Happy to take any questions or comments this time.
Just out of curiosity, is that any other adaptive systems, or is this the first?
We do not, and this is phase one of where we want to build that. So future phases.
That's a great project.
Are there any other questions? If there's not, I'll just need a motion for. I'll move. Second. Yeah. It's been moved and seconded for approval. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you.
Number 6, Carl, this is report on the 2024 regional trail pavement condition.
Excellent, thank you. So our 2024 trail pavement condition report is ready. First, I'll just share a couple updates about the data bike program. So initially, this program, we were outsourcing our data collection and processing to a company called Rival Solutions, or RRA. We use the application they produce. That was a pretty hefty fee for us to collect that data and process it and share with you. So we're working with Iowa State over the last few years to develop software that could process the data on our own. We've now moved that in-house, so that's kind of the delay for bringing you this report a bit later. Usually we give this in the winter, but we've now got the 2024 report ready for you because of those changes and moving that process in-house. Some other changes that we've made to the program going forward, we're going to be collecting just regionally significant trails. I should say just, it's a hefty amount of data collection that we're actually increasing in the mileage of trails that we're collecting each year, but we're no longer going to be collecting the local trails or local trails that aren't regionally significant. So that will now fall to jurisdictions. However, we have a second data bike now that we will loan out to member jurisdictions at absolutely no cost, and set you up to collect that data on your own. So Ankeny has used it, Grimes has used it, it's gone pretty well. So that's going to be the plan moving forward, is for the jurisdictions to collect their local trails, and the MPO will handle all regionally significant trails. That'll allow us to establish the same collection patterns year over year and get more of a trend line, and then we'll be able to forecast out trail pavement condition into the future. So here's an overview of the 2024 report and what we collected. So the 2024 report is focused on local trails. So that analysis was done in-house, and we published a story map on our website. So you can go onto our work on the MPO site and click on the data bike website and get directly to this 2024 report and kind of dive into it. It's an interactive map that you can look at your trails online there. So a little bit of the results. So we collected about 170 miles of trails in 2024, and kind of just an overview of what we saw is that over 91% of our trails, or the local trails, are in either a very smooth or smooth condition. So the trails are in really good condition. There are some rough patches out there, and you can kind of dive into the map and see exactly where those are. And we will be updating the report in the future with pavement photos, so you can kind of see those problem areas as well. So next step, go ahead and go to our website, check out the report in detail. And we are finishing up the analysis for 2025. So because we moved that analysis in-house, we actually are able to control the process a bit more, and we'll be having the 2025 report for you next month. Again, we're going to be establishing trend lines and forecasting out the regionally significant trails. So we'll be collecting those same trails over each year, and the data bike is available to you. So with that, I'd like to take any questions that you may have.
Yeah, just kind of curious, then you're working with Iowa State. Are they using AI or anything like that to do the analysis?
Yeah, so they developed an AI, like for our pavement photos, they have a AI identifier of what type of cracks or distress is seen in the pavement, and they're able to score that. So we'll be working that into the analysis in the future.
Cool.
Yeah.
We borrow the bike, the MPO process all our data for us. So
Yep.
what does that come out as? Just a scoring system or rating?
Yeah, so we have a roughness index that as the bike goes over any bumps, it kind of scores how intense is that bump. And then we have a like 5-category.
So it's generally
Yeah, and then we also take the photos so you can kind of see the distress as well. We will bring that back to you.
Is this how they do the street view this pictures of the trail then as well?
Yeah, so every other year we're gonna have the GoPro 360 camera on the rider, and we'll be updating that street view every other year.
And if we wanted to check it out, like
area or something.
Yep, just reach out. Put in a general request with the MPO and get to us.
One question I had is, as you look at the report, I know you haven't probably had time to dig too much, but knowing that we're gonna have the 2025 report coming here soon, if there's anything in particular you want to see that, or data presented in a certain way, you know, we want to make this useful. So I guess keep that in mind if you look at the report. Let us know how we can make it more beneficial.
Can you talk a little, so you said it's like a roughness indicator, but can you relate that? Because how we just chose to repave one of the trails in our community and we needed to justify it to our council to spend money on it based on the same conditions that we would require sidewalk repairs. That our ordinance specifies, you know, the gaps in sidewalks, the sparring in sidewalks, those sorts of things. And use that to say this trail needs resurfaced because we would not, you know, if this is on private property, we would be requiring that person to fix. Is there any, so I understand roughness, but that doesn't necessarily translate to like our sidewalk ordinances that have gaps or have other issues that we'd be requiring. So I don't know what the answer is, but because part of our challenge too is, you know, the data bike only goes in one path along a 12-foot wide trail, so it's not necessarily encompassing of the entire condition. I don't know if your rider is trying to intentionally swerve to hit all of those bumps to make sure that they are really capturing that picture, but I just would like to maybe have a bigger thought about, as funding for projects and trails is getting harder and harder, how are we justifying this and using this to help us make the case that we need to continue to invest.
So the rider does just ride down the center of the trail as much as possible. If there's a obstruction or a person, they have to kind of veer, but ideally they're riding down the center of the trail, and we do only collect in one direction. So it's really the photos and kind of going back to that AI tool that is identifying the cracks and the length of cracks. So that is capturing the entire trail. So as we kind of work with that, and maybe we can use that to help identify those. But as far as measuring like the height of like a separation in the trail, I don't think it's able to capture that. We need to look at more of like a LiDAR type of solution to try and measure stuff like that, which, you know, is interesting and would be fun to explore. But at this time, I don't know that we're able to get that granular detail.
So it won't pick up like, so it's really kind of giving you the overall smoothness for a segment. It's not gonna like flag like defects like in hurricanes. So if there's trip hazards,
And
then
part of it, I think, like the data bike said, we just are finishing up resurfacing Carver Creek Trail. The data bike said that trail is great. We disagree with that, and so then we had an uphill battle to our elected officials to demonstrate to them that actually it was not great and that it needed resurfacing, a trail that hadn't been resurfaced in 25 years. And so I just want to be careful about how we are presenting the data, that it's not actually doing a disservice to us who are trying to get investment in these services or in these amenities.
Yeah. Can I hop in and talk about the data a little bit? So a couple of changes that were made with work at Intrans is that moving away from RRF, we were able to do a little bit deeper dive into how is the roughness data actually being processed. So now it's correlating directly to something that's typical IRI for a street pavement. So if you were to look at the process of how is IRI calculated, how is our bike roughness calculated, those are similar processes now. Versus what was previously done was kind of a black box to us, and really we were just getting, here's the 1 to 5 rating of smoothness. So we have more control over that. The other thing that we've changed with the analysis this year is we've actually changed the length of each trail segment, because as we were looking at previous trail segments, the length factors into the overall condition because each point along there gives you a different roughness value. And if you kind of average that over a larger segment, the segments that are doing poorly might show up as fair or good, just on that bottom level. Or if we shrink that segment length down a little bit, we can actually say, here are problem spots on the trail. The second thing that Carl's mentioning a lot with the photos. So the photos have, it goes through a process that identifies 8 different categories for defects. So we have transverse cracking, we have longitudinal cracking, we have seams that have been filled, we have potholes, we have many different cracking types that are identified, and those are tied to the photos. And then each of those photos, if we do some processing to get like a summation of what is the total cracking in each of those photos, and then that gets tied to the link as well. So you should be able to say the roughness of this trail that we want to improve is 4, and it has X number of feet of cracking based on the photos that we see. And with AI, it's not perfect. There are definitely errors in it, but it gives us some numbers that we can start saying, are we comfortable with where we're at, and do we need to set the way up to look at this trail and work? So,
When we develop that, if there's some sort of graphic, we go look at, we know this, now we can calibrate it. Like Mark said, it's kind of a black box.
yeah, and that they use Intrans use a walking profiler to actually help us get that IRI calculation set up. So there was a lot of work done to ground truth. What is a poor trail? What is a good trail? What is an excellent trail in terms of IRI? And what is the bike reading? How does that correlate? So I think we've actually advanced quite a bit in the last several years in terms of the data quality.
That's really good feedback. That's kind of useful. Fun to go out this full data bike.
Any other questions?
What do you think it would take to get back to the next level of a trail pavement condition rating? I mean, that's, I think from her point, the pavement, the street pavement condition, the PCI, we use that data to make our cases for repairing this street or that street. So the roughness is a component of that PCI. And so, but there's other, things in there that do that. So what do you think it would take to get to that level so we can have PCIs or trail pavements and I think like to the elected officials, I think that PCI, you can explain that the number is that it's a color. And it combines a lot of things. So what would we need to do to get there on the trail side?
We're actually pretty close. We're Intrans is still working on kind of what their final deliverables for us. That is bringing this data into DTIMS, which we use for our pavement forecasting. And so they're getting it set up with all the metrics that we need to say, here's what it looks like, here's how you run it, here's what going from our roughness index and our cracking identification to a PCI is. And then the goal would be, we can tie, when was this trail built, what was the cost of the trail, what's the cost of replacement, and forecast that out so that you can see when maintenance should be done on trails, what that might cost, like that. So we're close to that initial piece of being able to do PCI. The forecasting still needs a little bit of work because we have a lot of trail data that doesn't have that kind of initial cost of construction, and then we need to work on our cost of maintenance figures. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you.
Yes, that's next items on the agenda. Item 7.
Okay, so last month, I came before you and we discussed that mobilizing tomorrow needs some edits due to planning work that's been completed. And then we also said that, FHWA recommended that we include an additional 10 years of projects. So we made that ask. If anyone had projects, let us know. No one let us know, and that's perfectly fine. So we're looking at revisions. because nothing that we've identified merits an amendment. So again, the revision process just was included some changes to the modal elements, very generic editorial revisions, and then because no projects are being changed, there's nothing that needs to be impacted on the left. So just a quick look at what do we need to do for the CSAP at a very generic level. We just need to change these target numbers to 0 for 2050. So this is the main point that we need to change for this LRTP update, but there might be a few other items that we're going to redline as we go through and just make sure things cleaned up. So what's the process look like from here? We will finish that red line of the document. We'll notify everyone, hey, here are the updates. Then we'll finalize that and get it sent over to Iowa DOT, FSWA, and FPA. They all have the latest versions. And that follows our guidance for revisions. And then we'll again send around the latest version of the LRTP with those changes. Any questions on that? I'm happy to take them. And I appreciate everyone's thinking about are there projects that need to be added. Again, this is something that we can make revisions and amendments at any time. So if something pops up, just reach out and let us know. We can work into the process.
Thank you, Marcus. And you have next item 8, mobile license report on mobile license now goal 1 performance measure.
Thank you. So occasionally we like to, say how we're doing with our transportation network. So this year we're going to have conversations about each of the goals, the performance measures tied to those goals as we look out over the year. The thought process here is we're gonna present these quarterly as kind of a lump of everything within one of the goals. So starting with goal 1, because that's a logical place to start. So just a reminder, here's goal 1. If you don't want to read all the words on the screen, this goal focuses on the investment and maintaining the system, optimizing and managing the existing network while maintaining ensuring that we have future connections. So if we look at the performance measures for goal 1, base year, there in the table is going to be from the LRTP. Our current year is going to be updated data, whether it's 2025 or later 2024 data. And then our targets haven't changed from the LRTP. So just kind of giving an update here. Bridge condition, as you know, we expanded our planning areas. We have more bridges. As many of you know, bridges are evaluated every 2 years, inspected every 2 years. So it kind of varies every 2 years by which bridges are being inspected, what's happening, what's going on, what construction's being done, what bridge is taken out of the cycle. So there's a lot of factors going into this. So you can see that our bridge is in good condition, down slightly. Again, I think it's good. Bridges in center deck area goes along with the bridges in good condition. So not too terribly concerned about the condition of our bridges in terms of the performance currently. We know that we have a number of bridges that we have identified for funding that are being reconstructed, that maintenance is going on with them. So I think that this will continue to be maintained. Pavement, similar sort of pavement. We added some interstate and interstate NHS pavement when we expanded our planning area. I think the important one here is that the average PCI scores are a little bit higher, so that's great job everyone keeping the ratings up to date. So again, I think that overall we're probably on a good path to hit our 5-year target of maintaining those. Nothing is really standing out. It's something that's terribly concerning. Then I just note that the performance measures with stars on it are the ones that are federally required. We have to report that. I should be right. So then we have peak hour performance. This is reliability. for the interstate system and the NHS routes. The interstate system is down just slightly. Thinking about this and looking kind of at the data, I think it ties back to the construction that's going on in our interstate system. So, I think that's going to continue to be a trend as those projects continue. But again, it's small change, so nothing too concerning. Truck traffic light reliability, something similar, went up a little bit. That's the only direction we want. But again, I think it's tied to the construction project. So nothing too very recent there. On our regional trail system, we didn't actually do an update for our gaps and miles of gaps because we're in the process of looking at our active transportation plan, and that'll help us define what a gap should be. But I will note that a lot of progress has been made with the LRGP even to fill in trail gaps. So those numbers have been declining, so I think we'll hit our 5-year target. But we just haven't gotten around to saying what is a gap, where are the new gaps, what is that plan gonna say we should change these targets to. And then the regional trail system in good and poor condition, as Carl mentioned. This data by data. The one point I would like to note is that our base year is using that older version of the data. The current is using the more recent version of the data, the process that we've developed. As we go back and look at the data by data over time and try to develop trends, we'll likely go back and reanalyze the previous data and take a look at what it looked like if we need to make it there. So that is the update on our performance measures. I do have one more slide, just to kind of show you where you can find these. If you go to our data, our resources and data maps, we have dashboards set up where you can go in and look at kind of tables and maps, charts, and things. And this video shows what that looks like. These are kind of updates to the dashboards that were started online. And then if you're interested, you can use that QR code to jump to the goal more. And these will be continually updated with new data and everything. So for those up to date. Questions?
That data we can pull into our GIS. Yeah, but the president wanting
We do, yeah. If you need it, let me know. I can get it to you. It's probably a little bit easier. Well, it's probably a little bit easier for me to send you the link to it. If you go to the dashboard, you can't directly download from the dashboard, but that is something we could look at doing it. But you try for you all.
Any other questions? Yeah. Oh, okay. Just kind of, all right. Oh, yeah. Thank you, Mark. Next, item number 9, Dylan has to report on MPO funding process.
Last month, we spoke to you about we had on our funding for 1 year to give it time to reevaluate everything and see how we can improve the process, implement the goals and objectives of Goal Life Tomorrow, take the action plan, and so forth. After we spoke to you, again, this group said, yeah, a 1-year cost would be fine. We also spoke to the executive committee, the policy committee, they agreed to do the 1-year pause. So when we spoke to you last month, we said, if that was the approach we would take, we'd come back to you and outline the process for how we envision this to go forward. That's what we want today. So go to the next slide. Again, if we look at, we talk about the reason why we update every day to make sure we are incorporating what might happen throughout the organization for these efforts this year. But if we look at the goals and what success looks like in this approach, there's really 3 things. That we want to make this streamlined, we want to make it strategic, we want to make it impact. The streamlined, we've heard comments over the years that sometimes it's an overbearing process. There's a lot of questions asked, are these questions actually needed? Those are the kind of things we want to make sure that we are addressing. When you got ideas of what it look like, they're things probably aren't needed. They're probably things that you need to be added in it. That aren't asked now, so going to looking at the strategic, we want this funding to actually be useful in achieving goals of the MPO, achieving goals, ensuring that we are asking the right question, getting the right data, and doing that. And then we also think there's probably opportunities to be more impactful with the MPO fund. Oftentimes the funding is just kind of figured out. We get about $20 million, really about 5% of the funding is spent on transportation. So keeping that in mind, how can we be strategic with that 5%? How can we be really impactful in making sure the projects are moving forward rather than giving everybody a little bit of money? And then the money sits there and you kind of just got to let together for years. Finally, you're able to use it's probably a better way to go about that. Okay. Those are the things we want to really keep investigating, and I think if we're successful, we will achieve them. As far as the process to do this, we divided this into 3 phases. The first phase, which really means dumping all the puzzle pieces on the table, figuring out what we're working with, and putting it back together. So looking at, like I said, the application process, what are the questions we want to keep out and where to take it out, those kind of things. What are the different criteria that we might want to add in because of those plans that we are either recently finished or finishing now. But then also what are best practices? See what other communities do. We mentioned there on that third bullet, what if there's potential for a local swap? We had the federal swap, the state federal swap a couple of years ago, and the DMT couldn't keep doing that after the opposition bill. But there's other examples throughout the country where they just do that. They might give all their money to one of their bigger cities, the big city gives back local money, and that those are things we can investigate and have in a practical case. Promising it would work, but it's not to be doing. And all along the way, we'd have to keep in mind what's happening. So we envision that would happen over the next couple of months from now to early next year. Then if we go to phase 2, then we get start putting together. So now that we've seen everything, let's put together however many options and let everyone have a say in what that looks like. Put that before the group, figure out what works best, and then we would go forward with that. And once we have an idea of what that preferred scenario is, then we would start building out the application, funding process, guideline, and everything to get ready for the next. One thing I will mention that could impact us a little bit as we go through the process. Scott Sanders and Policy Committee, mentioned the Moines mentioned, is the timing that we work on now where we do applications in December and do back early January. Is that the right time? Or can we do it early in the year so that the results are known and you can better incorporate that into your CIP budget? So that if we decide to really accelerate that timeline, this might have to adjust a little bit, but those are things we can keep in mind. So that's kind of what we're envisioning in terms of how we go about it on the next event. We're thinking that there needs to be some sort of committee to do this. We would keep all of the tech executive policy apprised of what's going on as we go through it. We think a more dedicated work group would make sense. That would comprise some folks from the tech committee and primarily some folks from the funding subcommittee. And the funding subcommittee is also members of policy committees. Mix of tech and policy folks. And you can see they've got to meet 10 times or so for the next year. Kind of depends on what phase we're in and how they go with that right now. Can't recall if there's another slide there or not, but that's really what we're thinking about. I'd be curious to see what you think about this process and any adjustments need to be made, anything we're not considering to this. And last time we asked you to start thinking about it. So if you have already you want to start sharing, feel free to lay them on it now. We're always happy to take that. We want to make sure that everyone has a chance, even if you're not on that committee, you have a chance to participate in this, get your feedback on what's those considered. So with that said, I'll stop talking. Here is the reaction to this.
I apologize, I missed the last meeting. Tom, but what's the reason for? So we're not going to do the application number. What is the reason for postponing them a year to work on this? Why can we not just work on this? Like still have the application keep saying and then work on it for to make the changes for the 20, the FY 31 year. Like, I don't understand how does the delay in funding affect if we're going to make these changes for FY 2031? Why not do that? But then go ahead and go forward with the FY 35.
And so this was the option we laid out to folks. We want to try to make the changes now, because right now we have an application process. In some cases, it doesn't make sense. It's asking for information that we know is, I don't think it's in violation of the long range plan, but it just doesn't make sense for the long range plan. It doesn't make, we're asking questions about safety that don't comply with our new comprehensive plan. So some changes would likely be made, otherwise it just wouldn't make a lot of sense to us. We could try to quickly get those crammed in and get the application rolling by December, or we could just take a pause. And the other big thing with it too is the funding subcommittee, when they met this last round, was a little concerned with what was happening in DC with just the funding changes and the administration and everything. What they don't want to see is they're awarding funding that's just going to be rescinded. If we give money to things like bike trails and electric vehicle charging or whatever the case might be, that support the GP don't agree with now, that's the part they don't want to, that they're very sensitive to, because we're awarding funds past what is authorized. The authorization bill expires in next federal. So we're already kind of awarding funds aren't guaranteed, and they were already a little uneasy about that. So awarding even more was really kind of big.
Yeah, but aren't all other that goes to affect that.
Yeah, I mean it's never happened where they just stop the funding, right? But I think the idea is more that the fund what can be funded by.
The exec committee, our electeds were all on board with.
Yeah, there was a pretty robust conversation. It said for a year. There was a conversation of do we do every other year going forward. We didn't like that idea. Not yet. So a 1 year pause, and then we would just award 2 years of funding on it.
Any other questions?
No, I guess if everyone's comfortable with this going forward, obviously there'll be a lot of more discussions on these topics. Keep your eyes, and that's what we have for you.
Thank you. Addison for item 10 has a compiled list of informational items. The only one thing I'll add is the American Public Works Association, the Iowa chapter, has some full meeting in Moines on October 1st through 3rd as well. So, with IT, yeah, and we're just, if IT set it open as well.
That's for tomorrow.
Yeah, they're different locations, right? Same dates, yeah. So, this opportunity there, share not for the face of the get off. Yeah. Then item 11, other non-action items of interest.
Few here for you. I'll take the first two, I believe. Just want to let you know that as we indicated last month, we're going to be making some noise locally about the SS4A application. Our goal here is to get on the news feeds of USDOT and MHWA staffers. Just let them see that there's local support and interest in seeing this initiative move forward. So we'll be starting that next week. We would ask you all to monitor it and share, and got our intern is building up that social media calendar for us right now. And we'll be reaching out to you and asking you to help just raise the volume a little bit on that. And we'll also be doing some targeted outreach to collect media members. If there's any questions on that, wanted to share that as part of the Future 435 initiative, we committed to doing an alternatives analysis to look at alternative routes for the farm users on that corridor. We're using it to take criminal river. The Iowa DOT put out an RFP, and we did get 3 really great responses to that. Just want to let you know that got really positive results to that RFP. The selection committee next week to make a selection. NPO staff and DOT staff.
All right. Also, we have a grant deadline approaching, so the federal fiscal year 2027 federal and state rec trails program. The application is active right now and start due on October 1st. So this is to help maintain and develop recreation trails for motorized and non-motorized activity. Also have an update on our city data AI. So back in March, we decided to move forward as a group that we would obtain city data AI as a data provider for us. So that was to help deliver a deeper level of data that we're not currently getting from our trail counters. So we have our physical trail counters. This is in addition to that to get us a bit more data about what's happening in our trails. We can also use this for parks and events. So if you have a farmer's market or something like that, you can apply this to those areas as well. So a dashboard has been delivered to us. We've started going through that, and we've had some issues with it that we're going to work through. So we have some data cleaning that needs to happen before it's really ready for planning use. But we wanted to share an update on you with what we've got. So here's a look at what was ingested from city data. It identified an issue that we already kind of knew existed with our Trails GIS. It needed some cleanup. The Bike Ped Roundtable had worked to update the GIS rules. So we have finalized those, accepted those. The City of Des Moines GIS department has reviewed those and accepted them. So we're now ready to move forward with updating our Trails GIS. So we're going to be convening the editors from the region to update that, and we'll clean up our data because what city data was able to provide was missing quite a bit of the data that goes into some of those fields that they were using to display the trail. So there's quite a bit of our trail system that's missing. So we're going to be working to clean that up and get that updated. But what we can expect from city data, so based on what they've ingested and the 3 months that we have available to us, so April 1st to July 31st, here's kind of a look at the dashboard and what you kind of get from this. You can see how the number of people that are visiting, when they're visiting, how long they're spending on the trails or in your parks or events. You can see where they're coming from. So this uses their cell phone data and identifies kind of a home location, and then if they've traveled from their home location to our network and entered into any of our geofenced areas, you can kind of see where they're coming from.
That's the phone thing.
So they use
Is there
the
many people really coming from, or is it like the phone number?
no, so it's it identified the home location based on the most frequent overnight stays of that cell phone. So it uses their GPS location for the phone.
It's not just like this area code.
No,
That's okay.
no.
Yeah.
It's the physical location of the phone and where they're spending their most amount of time overnight, where they're working at. Sometimes in the market, they use like over 10,000 apps to kind of develop their locations. So you can see who's using it, what the makeup of that individual is. That's it. But so quite a bit of information about who's using the trails, where they're coming from, how much time they're spending on it, which is a bit more information that we're getting from our just physical counter. So someone would find the trail counter. So hopefully this will give us a lot more insight on how the trails are used and aid in some planning and some grant opportunities. So next steps, like I mentioned, we're going to be working with each of the editors in the region to get that GIS updated so that we can display our entire trail network, and then we're also working with each local jurisdiction. So I'll be coming to each one of you to onboard you and get the other areas that you'd like. So all of your city parks, local trails, events, farmers markets, whatever you'd like, we can go ahead and add it there. So the process for that is that you have to give the data to the MPO, and we can funnel it to the city data. But with that, I'm happy to take any questions.
So you'll be setting up an appointment with, I guess, number of meetings.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, I was gonna reach out to the tech member and see if you guys wanted to get together, if it's any economic development, parks and get everyone in the room and just decide what we want to get data on, and then we can set up a geofence a map and then I can send that to the city data. Thank you.
Is there any other non-action items? Next item is the next meeting that falls with same time as two other conferences. We want to put that back a week or a week.
We could probably do either one. Yeah, we could do either one. I guess one question is it gonna impact people? For your whole. Also. Or make a decision on where to move it.
This is February. Yeah, I guess.
The following Thursday is the APA conference. Yeah, so that's good. Potential shoot. Previously, we felt it on the Monday of the week. So in that case, it would be Monday, the 29th.
Instead of conference Wednesday, right?
I'll stay Friday.
Get a date.
Right.
And we're open to whatever's.
Yeah, so maybe all of the conference now.
I'm all for a leader, copy here.
Some planners.
Well, we can still.
Really a bit earlier in the week.
I like how that, yeah, maybe
I'll suggest we send a doodle poll and we include the existing date that's already on the calendar as an option. So we know what attendance would be like on that day as well. And then we'll circle back and let you know if we land up.
No, I got this. Next meeting date is to be determined by Gunner. And that's the beautiful. So with that, take one for adjournment. Do I need one for adjournment? I'm gonna adjourn. Thank you.